Good afternoon and welcome to our today's Coffee and Consulting event about business traveler risk management. I hope you started well in the week and have already a cup of coffee or cup of tea in front of you so that we can start together. My name is Friederike Ruch and I have the honor to hold today's presentation, as well as then in the end to answer all your questions you may have. On the right-hand side, you will find the box where you can write, as usual, all your questions you have to today's event. In case you do not have the time to write the questions while I hold the presentation, then just drop us an email and we will happily answer them afterwards. Otherwise, if you write them down during the presentation, then I'm happy to answer them after it. In addition, also on the right-hand side, you will find our slides. You can either download and then save them onto your computer while the presentation is on, or otherwise you can also print them out. If not, you can still have them after the presentation as well. Also, the presentation will be recorded, so you can also listen to it afterwards again, in case you think the one or the other thing you didn't catch. So then you can listen to it. Our today's topic is, I would say, one of the more important ones in our area. It's about business travel risk management, and that is something which becomes as well increasingly more important because business trips increase, and therefore that is something each company or everybody basically should look at and take care. In the last 2 years, business travels have been also quite a hot topic, above all because of all the travel restrictions based on the pandemic and all the quarantine and entry regulations which changed frequently. So we all had been quite busy in taking care and looking after that. But what is business travel risk management about, and what are the risks we have to look at or look a bit closer to when it's about business trips? There are, first of all, security risks in case of crimes, terrorism, political and social unrest. You may remember a couple of years back in Hong Kong or Thailand, where there had been huge fights, and if there had been the one or the other employee also from your company at the same time there, people didn't feel quite good there and well, and had lots of questions, as well as trying to get out of the country or city as quickly as possible. We had also two people in Hong Kong, and they felt quite unsafe and had afterwards quite a traumatic shock about it. So that is something you need to look at. So even here in Switzerland, as well as in most of the European countries, more or less, politically, there are not that many issues, or not that you feel quite unsecure, but still it is something you need to look at. There's also the thing about natural disasters. If we looked at it earlier and saw that in 2020 there had been about 50 natural disasters which actually each of them cost more than $1 billion to get around. So that is quite some number. We didn't think that it really is that there are so many, but as you see, there are lots of. You may remember the flooding in China or the Hurricane Laura in the US. Last year as well, the flooding in Germany. So some of you may still have those pictures in their head about those. And if you have then travelers in the country, then that is something you definitely need to look at and see and find a solution how you can, or what you can do to safeguard the employees and see that they can actually healthy and well and quickly, sometimes as well, get out of the country. Now, if we talk about risks, then there are also health risks like illness, accidents, pandemics, as we currently have one, or if we look at the communication, at least in Switzerland, we have it almost over. It is important that the employee who is sick or had an accident knows exactly where they can go to get the medical treatment they need, so to be also feel secure. Then the other group of risks are these compliance risks, which we usually also have to look at, like the registration procedures or notification processes, work permits. Also have the business travelers, are the labor law being looked at, like working hours, holidays, salary, rest periods, as well as the matter about taxes and social security. The last two are a little bit less frequently to be looked at or closely looked at, but the rest of it is something which you need to look at each for each business trip. So looking at all these risks, it's understandable, I think, that business travel risk management is definitely something you should establish, or if not, also implement. Then that's not just about the emergency plan or a security concept or tools or processes, but it starts basically also to see where are my employees? Do I know actually where they are? I mean, looking at the pandemic situation, there had been lots of clients calling us and saying, we actually do not even know where our expats are. And now expats are not like a business traveler who go just in a city or in a country for just a couple of days or weeks. They are staying much longer. Also them, some of the companies were not able to find to locate. So that is something definitely where everything basically starts. Now, even though in Switzerland, as said, at least it looks like that we overcome Corona, but that is not in all other countries the same situation. So we also have to think about what will happen towards the end of the year, and most likely we will be back in a similar situation as today, that certain travels will not be possible at all, or we still have certain entry regulations or quarantine regulations to be looked at. During COVID, we understood that those regulations are, and that we have to look at that on a daily basis, basically, because countries have changed their procedures more or less overnight. I mean, looking at the last sample from Switzerland, basically, where on a Saturday it was changed that the UK is back on a high-risk country and quarantine requirements are in place, and then 3 days later, that was actually the UK was off the list again, and there were no quarantine requirements any longer in place. So situations like that, we had lots of them during the last 2 years, and that will also not change most likely in future. So you need always to be basically really up to date, and you need to have a tool or a system or some sort of information or provider you can get the information about what happens everywhere and what are the rules and regulations. As COVID, and this is also true for any other pandemic, we need to have the information of a situation quite quickly, and we need to know who actually needs to travel, who is allowed to travel, who can authorize it, under what circumstances are travels permitted, when a return is required from the country they are, how is that possible? Looking at the current situation, maybe flights will not be possible any longer, or someone is tested positive. And we had even recently a couple of situations where people who were in the end stranded much longer than foreseen. And we just had one case where someone went on a business trip to Argentina. In Argentina, then they had to be tested before actually going on the flight back to Switzerland. And when they did the test, it was positive, and then they had to go and stay in the hotel. Now in Argentina, they were able to stay in a hotel. In other countries, there are quarantine hospitals or resorts where you have to go to, which are not that nice as a hotel. Even resort is a too nice name for it. So you need, basically, as a company, you need to be able to then help your employee and help to find the way around, as well as in case there are then medical treatments or doctors required, or he has to go or she has to go to a hospital, that you will have the information ready for the individual, that they can get the treatment they need, as well as to see how quickly you can repatriate someone. And that is also for expats. We had lots of time the discussions with clients as well, depending on where you send your employee, in case he gets quite sick and needs then quite severe medical treatment. Maybe in the one or the other country they do not want to stay, because they are not really trusting in the environment there. So they do want to go back or come back, and then it is quite important that you have a kind of insurance or someone who will pay for the cost for their repatriation in place. Otherwise, that is quite expensive if you do want to get somebody flying back to Switzerland or to whatever other country, in case he or she is in a severe situation. Now, why does a company need to implement a business travel risk management? Firstly, I think it is above all because of the duty of care of the employees. And as a second point, it's also about all these compliance matters and to meet the legal and also the ethical obligations. This is really just very important that as a company you make sure you do have something in place, and a travel risk assessment, I would say, is the start of, and it is quite fundamental to in order to comply with the obligation of duty of care, and it's also important to identify in the end all the threats an employee could face during a trip, and then include all the aspects about starting from the loss of a flight to really a global pandemic or a natural disaster. So put down all the risks they might incur, and then you need to find for each of those topics a solution, basically, or a policy or a process how to go about. With a well-thought travel risk assessment, a company also reassures the employees who are traveling and contribute in the end to safeguard their safety by knowing what to do in a critical situation. So tools a lot of tools are available to track down employees, and so that you know exactly where they are, and that is, as said earlier, one of the important points which also COVID has shown us. Now, in addition to employee tracking tools, so to know where they are, it's also important that you actually train your people so that they understand what is considered a risk during a trip, what to do. The training should basically be mainly about prevention and to make it easier to avoid any dangerous situation, as well as to get them also the tools how to be able to solve any situation and to find a good way around. In addition, you also will need kind of processes in a company, so to have a regulation and rules implemented to have a better idea what to do, and to also define responsibilities all over the team, as well as through the HR and line management, so that everybody knows what to do. Now, if we have assessed what there is that we do need, we know what kind of risks there are, we do know why we need to implement it and the importance of it, as well as what to do with it. There is then one more thing to look after, that is basically the monitoring of the destinations, meaning that if we know now where our people are, that we will look at all these countries, cities, regions, and to see then for each of that, what is actually what an employee needs to know and what he needs to do in that specific destination. And there again, it is about political instability or unrest, upheat. You will have, or you can find the information on all those websites from the Swiss authority or the whatever other authority, governmental authority, institution from the country they are going to have the most updated information and to provide that to the employee so that he is aware of it as well as for you as a company or as the employer. You have also the information and can also say, okay, that is too risky for me. So basically, if something is listed on that risk list, then all travels, for example, will be prohibited for the future or for the time being until it is again taken off that list. In regard to the health situation as well, there are certain requirements in the various destinations. In some countries, you need to be vaccinated, for example, to go to enter. In some, there are other necessary health matters to be taken care. So that is something you need to monitor as well, to advise the employee who has to travel to one country. We just recently had the information received from our Chinese colleague that, for example, also children actually need to be vaccinated to travel to China, or in case they are not, we need to have a certain doctor's note why they can't be vaccinated. Now, looking at the situation in Switzerland, for example, children under 12 are just recently actually being able to be vaccinated. So before we were not even be able to do that. So that is something the information needs to be received, and the employee needs to have them before they go on the trip. In regard to accommodation, employees should be made aware about the risks in certain regions. Now, that is in some regions more important than in others. Now, going on a trip in Switzerland maybe, or to a hotel here in Switzerland, you feel quite safe everywhere. However, taking care or looking at the emergency plan is also always quite good, because you never know when even here will happen something like a fire or whatever. Also, kind of typical precautions, like you should not go and book a room on the ground floor, or put down the do not disturb sign when you're not in the room. Things like that are quite common and you know them, but it's always good to remind people on it. When we have started to look a bit closer on the business travel risk management beginning of the year, we have looked at a report from 2018 from the Global Business Travel Association and the AIG Insurance, and they have actually indicated that 83% of the women had a safety issue while they had been traveling on business, which actually quite shocked me when I read it. I thought there are certain safety and security risks, and women most likely are have a couple of more than male travelers. However, I didn't thought that it will be that high and there are that many issues. So that is definitely something, when you do establish your business traveler risk management, that you should look at that group of your staff separately and a bit more closely, to see that that number is not as high as it is here in your company compared to. Now, monitoring is one of the important points. So to summarize it, basically, it is, if you have already a business traveler risk plan in place, we've listed there on the left-hand side the kind of to-dos in case there's already one in your company. Mainly, you then really need to checking on the current regulations, the current situations in the specific regions your travelers will go to. You should check on automatic travel booking systems. Is there anything you can maybe get in addition to the one you already have in place, or maybe change that as well, or is there any kind of tool which makes everything much more automatic and more flexible, and people get more quickly the information they need for their travels, as well as checking on existing health and safety regulations and processes in place already. Are they still up to date, or is there anything you may want to add or change? And as well, the existing processes in regard to all the legal aspects. Are they up to date? Are they for all the countries, or countries and destinations involved in place in the right way, or is there anything you may need to change? As well as review the existing insurance policies and see whether there's anything you need to take out in addition, or the ones you have already is covering everything you need. What we heard and have seen, as well as have read, is that the trust and confidence of employees in regard to business trips and business travels is basically not as where it should be. And therefore, with all those measurements in place, then, and if you can show as a company that you're trying to take care of everything, and that an employee, while he's on a business trip, is secure, can feel safe, knows exactly where to go to in case anything happens, then that also improves the trust and the confidence. And employees then do not check, double check or triple check everything and get back to you as well with information or questions basically on information you already provided them, because they are just not sure whether that is really true or not. So basically, in case you have already something in place, then it's really about checking whether it's up to date, and or whether there needs to be some kind of adjustments or adaptations on it. In case there's nothing in place yet, then definitely now would be a good time point to get started on it. And the starting point is basically really analyzing the current situation, assessing what do I actually need, what is the scope, what are my business trips in my company, where are my people are going, as well as how long do they go, what type of business trips do we have. And with all that assessment and of what kind of business trip we have to look at, you then can define what kind of risks, as well as see a number, as well, what is my highest risk, what is my lowest risk. And then you can get about it and check on what to do next, or better to see what kind of solution I can find for each of it. With a good and well thought through analysis, you then can define your business travel risk management, the processes. You can start and define and draft the regulations, as well as all the processes, guidelines, internal guidelines, defining the responsibilities of the different stakeholders, and to see as well that you do have tools which are on the market you can get in addition to have the most updated process in place. You also will need to check on possible insurance, travel insurances. Maybe you have already one in place, even you have not really a good and well thought through business travel risk management, but you do have already a travel insurance. Then see whether that is exactly what you need, and whether all the regions and areas are covered, as well as what happens in case there is someone stuck. Is there a possibility that you can get that person out of there? Or is that then that you do have to pay for that yourself? Also see whether you need to contract with external service providers, third parties, for getting all the information you need in order to have what you actually need and require. And if you've done those 3 steps, and those are really quite important, then you can think about to go operational and to implement everything in the company. And then afterwards is really only then about constant monitoring, reporting, seeing also that you update everything from time to time, as that is not something you just write once and then it is for the next 10 years valid. You will need to constantly look after it and make adjustments as it goes. What I can recommend you is there is from ISO a guideline or guidance on business travel security, which I think is quite useful. And if you either have already such a risk management in place, or you're just thinking about now to put one together, then that is something I can recommend you to look at, as it really has everything in it and might help you with those next steps. Now, the important part about, and that is also my last sentence on that topic for the moment, on business travel risk management, is not just to show your employees that they can trust in you, and not also only for compliance matters, but it becomes also more and more a topic in the annual audits. So it is something at some point you will find, if in case you haven't one in place in the annual audit report, that they tell you you need to establish one. That is our presentation about it. So now I will check on all your questions you may have. And let's see. Are there any questions? No, there are no questions. So presumably everything was quite clear, or you need to still think about that topic and may have then later on the one or the other question. Then as offered, you can still call us or send us an email, and we're happy to answer your question. So in the last couple of minutes, I just wanted to inform you about what you can see next of us. The next seminar will be about remote working. So in case you are interested, it takes place on the 30th of March and is just online, but it is in German. And our next webinar will be on the 2nd of March, and it's about social security with cross-border employment. We would be happy to meet you at one of those events, or on our next Coffee and Consulting event, which takes place on the 7th of March. I hope you enjoyed today's session and you found the information you needed and were looking for. If not, then just let us know. We're happy to help you. I then only can wish you a great evening and hope to see you soon. Thank you.